good to see one, because again, it's a bit of that light armour that was peculiarly British, used in all sorts of roles across the whole of the Second World War, and on all the campaigns as well. Then at second from last, our M16, the American half-track. Again, one of an enormous number of those half-tracks that were made. We think there's probably over 50,000 of these based on the M3 American half-track there, delivered around the world. Our Sherman behind, the Fury Sherman, driving along there. We've left it in the markings of the Fury movie, so as you can see it's driving around there, and we've added a culling hedgerow cutter to the front. Of course it wouldn't have been there, as I mentioned, in Normandy, but we've added that as part of the, so we can show as part of the background for later on. The Normandy side of things is, in 1940, don't forget, America in its entire history had made about 300 tanks. And that idea, this phrase that's often used, the arsenal of democracy, Roosevelt asked the American production board, basically they sat them down together, had a chat, and he said he wanted 2,000 tanks a month. And quite sensibly, what the American military did, they went to the American automotive industry, the car industry, to say, how can we do this? In a lot of other countries, what they did, they actually went to things such as the railway manufacturers, heavy industry, and it was people like Ford, Chrysler, who came back and said, we can do this for you. And that massive expansion that meant not only could they equip American forces, but they could equip the British, the Canadian and the Commonwealth forces with kit as well. So again, that's one of the points we always like mentioning here, is that a lot of this...
or lowering the air suspension. It partially equips the light cavalry regiments of the Royal Armoured Corps. Maximum speed of 80 miles per hour on roads or 55 miles per hour over rough terrain. It is designed to protect personnel against roadside explosions and mine attacks. It is armed with a general purpose machine gun or GPMG for crew protection, operated by the commander at the front. On top, it can carry either a 7.62mm GPMG, a 12.7mm heavy machine gun, or a 40mm grenade machine gun as the main weapon system in the fire support role. Today it is fitted with a heavy machine gun. Jackal 2 is closely related to the Coyote tactical support vehicle, the six-wheeled Jackal-based variant. The Jackal 2 is used for reconnaissance, rapid assault, fire support and convoy protection. Service in 1971 and is still in service now, which means that in some cases 3 generations of soldiers from one family have served on the same scimitars. During the last 46 years, Scimitar has served in the British Army as a reconnaissance and fighting vehicle in the Falklands War, peacekeeping in Bosnia and Kosovo, and of course both Gulf Wars in Iraq, and most recently in Afghanistan. In 2010, a contract was awarded for the development, testing and management of an upgraded Scimitar 2 standard version. This was undertaken by BAE Systems, which coordinated the build of 50 new Scimitar 2 vehicles. These were completed in 2012. The Scimitar Mark II combat vehicle was rehulled to give better mine blast protection to troops, plus improved armour to enhance blast and ballistic protection. It also provides mine-protected, shock-absorbing seating in every crew position, a selection of close support bridges. Along with Trojan, it gives a common heavy armour suit based on the current range of in-service close support bridges, providing ground manoeuvre formations with improved capability and giving them greater flexibility. This Titan is commanded by Sergeant Roberts and driven by Sergeant McLaughlin, both members of the Combat Support Wing of the Technical Training School here at the Armour Centre, with a further 12 missiles carried in the hull. It is fitted with a roof-mounted air defence alerting device known as ADAD. The ADAD's infrared scanner and processor provide target detection and prioritisation, and the system automatically slews the weapon onto the target. This as Krag. It is a highly evolved armoured vehicle designed to repair and recover damaged tanks on the battlefield. The Krag is based on the Challenger 1 main battle tank chassis. This is cargo armoured vehicle with a very fast switch, a front dozer blade, and an Atlas hydraulically operated crane, which is CPV, and this version the REMI recovery and repair vehicle. All variants are equipped with a 7.62mm train gun. This vehicle is operated by REMI personnel in both armoured and armoured infantry battle groups. It is equipped with a 20-ton winch, a 6.5-ton crane plus power tool, and is able to tow a trailer carrying two Warrior engines and gearbox power packs. The Warrior 513 carried on display is command operations. Warrior's entered service in 1988 has been highly successful for armoured infantry battle groups, as used in both Gulf Wars, Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq, and of course Afghanistan. Served with distinction on operations in the First Gulf War and the Balkans. Although they look quite similar, only 5% of Challenger 2 components are identical to those of its predecessor. Challenger 2. In about 5 minutes or so, once these vehicles are in position, to introduce David to you.
Size of that casting on the turret. This is still a generation where it's actually steel and it's a cast hull. When it goes past, you might be able to slightly see underneath the nature of the hull. This rather sleek looking beast coming on now. This is the T-72, famous Russian designed and initially built tank. This particular example is actually a fully farmed one. Have support. And this peculiar looking vehicle, this thing is what we in the West, they call it an ACRV or an IV-15. and it's basically like a command vehicle. Ahead, he can whack his forward or reverse lever into reverse, and then he's got 5 reverse gears he can shoot through and go just as fast backwards, and there's a little hatch just below. This one coming on, again we say often, you know, it's not a tank, this is an APC, Armoured Personnel Carrier. And this particular one, this is the British Army's FV, were originally made back in the 1960s. That means most of the soldiers in them are at least half the age of the vehicle they're driving around in. So the next vehicle we're taking around. So this coming on, even though ultimately Switzerland did buy Centurions, they had started their own tank design program, because again, even though they're a neutral country, a bit like Sweden as well, they are nervous about people on their borders coming their way. So they have actually quite a big... This vehicle here, this now has the honour of being the most produced armoured vehicle of all time. The FMC company, Food Manufacturing Corporation of North America, has now made, they reckon, over 80,000. True, because this is something called the Lynx that was made by the Canadian division oh golly, I forgot the name of the company now, but they ended up in Northwest Europe by the American Army, and this particular variant, this is called the Rise variant, it had an improved engine. It was basically a reliability issue. They did various things to the Continental diesel engine in the rear, so it was more reliable and more fuel efficient. Panther came into operation. Did they have a chance of recovering a major heavy tank under fire? Now, we converted tanks in Britain. We ended up taking turrets off the tanks in World War II to do recovery tanks, and it was only after the Second World War that we ended designing this tank service. So as we then put the Chieftain tank, well over 60 tons, into service, we ended up having to do a Chieftain recovery variant. And what we've got here, this is the vehicle driving around now. This is called FD4204, which was basically a Chieftain Mark V, and they put this massive great cast car, something basically on the chassis underneath drivetrain, just down to one tank. And pretty much everything you've got on there, you had on the Chieftain recovery vehicle, except in service of the British Army at the beginning of the war. So they're a rare bit of British armour. You can almost see underneath it, look like it's based on the Carden Lloyd carrier with a track system there. It's actually got a little curved turret there. It was a 2-man vehicle, and what he's done by making this is kind of fill the gap in part of that armour story. So well done to Bob Grundy, and many thanks for him bringing it down here to the museum today. Now, for those of you who regularly come to Tankfest, behind our Matilda 1, that's our first model Mark I infantry tank for the British Army that goes into service to bulldoze a way ahead. So they looked back and they got things like here, Cromwell or Centaur hulls, and put a dozer blade on the front. And the Nuffield factory up in Coventry, they ended up the same place that made a version of a cruiser tank for the British Army. This is the Comet, and by the time we get to the Comet, we're getting things right in our own tank production. We relied, understandably, very heavily on American production for the Sherman, and off the troops, and they go into action in their original Shermans. They didn't want to risk going into action in a brand new tank that the guys might be unfamiliar with, but they do see action. They're reissued in the new year, and off they go and they fight in the Battle of Germany. And we finish our World War II British Army because it's often, we forget, the Centurion is a World War II tank. It's a tank that doesn't quite get to see action. It gets there about 6 weeks too late at the end of World War II. But the first model Centurion, so they whip on to the next version of the Stuart tank, as we called it, they called it the M5, and that's the one that's behind our Sherman there, was off because they realised visibility was better if you were going ahead of the main force. And of course, we often mention, there's our Sherman. We talked about it a little bit earlier on, but again, I come back to a brilliant bit of American design and engineering. Watch it when you read all those books and see all of that is about the gun, and all that gun is trying to get that round accurately on target to do the damage. That's what it's all about, of course. So, and that was a lesson that certainly in Britain, as I mentioned, we learned after World War II. Almost looked like a porta potty with a motorcycle wheel on the front. The whole idea of this, it was used really not so much as an armoured vehicle in any way. It was a tug. They were brought back for evaluation, looked at, analysed, reports written on them, before finally they were handed over to the Tank Museum in 1951. Now the Panzer III, many of you, if you've been to Tankfest before, you see this is a very reliable vehicle for us. It's been running for probably about the last 30 years at the museum. It appeared in a number of films at different times. We did a restoration job in the mid-2000s, our workshop team.
A fuel dump. But before they can knock out this valuable supply base, they first have to eliminate the guards. Utilizing coded messages, hundreds of small groups of resistant fighters were activated to play a crucial role in interdicting supply and communication lines many miles away from the actual combat areas, consequently slowing down and delaying the German military's ability to quickly respond to the invasion. France, June 1944, D-Day. As dawn breaks, the horizon fills with the largest armada the world has ever seen. 150,000 men are about to be unleashed onto the beaches and fields of Normandy. Stretching over 80 kilometers from the Orne River in the north through to the Cherbourg Peninsula, the Normandy coastline is heavily defended by fortifications, anti-tank Dragon's Teeth, wire, minefields, and defending German troops. If you look to the center of the arena, you will see German forces from the 352nd Infantry Division setting up in a defensive position on the ridge commanding views and lines of fire over Omaha Beach, the one featured in the film Saving Private Ryan. Omaha Beach, or La Plage d'Or, the Golden Beach to the French, is 7.5 kilometers long and overlooked by cliffs on either side. For the Allies, its importance cannot be underestimated. Failure to take Omaha would leave the British beachheads and the American beachhead at Utah separated and unable to assist each other, putting the invasion in great peril. The United States 1st and the 29th Infantry Divisions are given the task of assaulting the beach, supported by a massive sustained naval bombardment at 05:45 hours. Omaha has to be taken, regardless of the casualties. Now, if you look to the east of the arena, US infantry from the 29th Infantry Division can be seen moving forwards to attack the German defences on the right-hand side of the beach with their weapons. Secure in their fortified positions, the German defenders' heavy machine guns, mortars, small arms subject the Americans to sustained fire, which checks their forward momentum. Without armour support, following the failure to land enough of their DD and deep-wading Shermans onto the beach, the American GIs are suffering. However, despite heavy casualties to the assault troops, which spurred Colonel Canham's famous line, "They're murdering us here. Let's move inland and get murdered," the Americans are able to gain a foothold and land enough armour, in this case US armour, to assist in suppressing the defenders by sustained heavy fire, allowing the US infantry to finally rally and engage the German defenders on the bluffs, whose morale finally breaks, forcing them to rout or surrender. Omaha had been a tough, brutal and bloody assault for the American GIs, and a difficult baptism of fire for the Sherman crews of the 741st, who only managed to land 16 Shermans on shore, a further 27 lying on the seabed. Yet their job was only beginning, and whilst they'd taken the beachhead, it was now vitally important to help secure and enlarge it. Following another naval bombardment, this time by the Royal Navy, the action moves north along the Normandy coast to Sword Beach. at the mouth of the River Orne, and the small port of Ouistreham. Here, the British 3rd Infantry Division was given the task of assaulting and quickly silencing German defences on Sword Beach if the crucial objective transport hunt of Caen was to be captured. However, the Germans were aware of this and had moved the 21st Panzer Division, equipped with Panzer Mark IVs nearby, to attempt to drive the British back into the sea. Armoured support for the initial assault wave was supplied by the 27th Independent Armoured Brigade, the 79th Armoured Division, the famous Hobart's Funnies, and consisted of 3 DD duplex drive Sherman regiments, the 13th, 18th Royal Hussars, the 1st East Riding Yeomanry, and the Staffordshire Yeomanry. The 13th, 18th Royal Hussars with infantry in close support, assaulting the German beach positions at Lyon-sur-Mer. Here we can see British armour, in this case a Stuart light tank from a wrecker unit, move inland and use its firepower to suppress the German positions, forcing them to withdraw. By the end of this day of days, Allied forces had suffered approximately 10,000 casualties.
Poor trees.
It's a book.
I missed it. What happened?
The Panzer truck didn't go off.
Oh.
Now, not only do the Allies have to contend with the dogged German defenders on the beaches, but also the terrain in this inland. In this case, what the French call the bocage. These were large, thick hedgerows sprouting out of near impenetrable bases of earth, stone and thorn bushes, which themselves were 4 to 6 feet high and virtually insurmountable by armour, with the added danger of exposing the weak belly plate armour to the Germans if the unlucky vehicle was able to crawl over the hedge. Unfortunately for the Allies, the bocage was very extensive in Normandy, being used to separate and protect the fields from the wind, and together with the numerous apple orchards and sunken roads, the terrain beyond the beaches was adept at slowing down attacks and channeling the armour into anti-tank ambushes, which were increasingly deadly, with the use of shape-charged weapons, such as the single-use Panzerfaust, as this unlucky Daimler armoured car demonstrates. Whilst the planning for Operation Overlord had been meticulous for the landing, for US armour moving inland, the scale of this new terrain was completely unexpected, and they were unprepared for the hell of this hedgerow country. But as was usually the case, the solution came from the guys on the front line, with the introduction of a simple and effective invention, what would become known as the Cullen device. Devised and constructed in the field by Sergeant Cullen of the United States Army, the Cullen device featured a pair of steel prongs, which, when welded to the front of a tank, could be used to dig in and lift the hedges so that tanks could create their own gaps through which to pass and avoid the German anti-tank guns, Panzerfaust and mines, and infantry to nullify the advantages that the terrain provided for the defending German forces. The infantry becoming the eyes and ears, with the tanks offering instant firepower.
Watch.
The Americans won.